Hello and welcome to this week's MoneyFit Live webinar. My name is Todd Christensen, Education Manager at MoneyFit, and I'm glad you're joining me. If you're joining me live today, happy Halloween 2019. If you're joining me as a recording, hope you're having a great day. Today's topic, financially empowered new parents. We're going to be talking about some of the unique financial challenges and how to address some of those that new parents are going to face. So let's just go ahead and get started. What are some of the signs that there's some trouble coming down the road financially or is already at the door? Of course, budgeting issues. If you're talking about budgeting, we might be talking about not reviewing our budget regularly, not considering some of the extra costs that a new child is going to bring about in your new home. Debts, boy, you've got the debts. You may not be tracking all the doctor bills, medical expenses. You may be seeing your credit card balance skyrocketing. Savings, you've got money. You're using money from your savings, emergency savings, for expenses, or even worse, retirement money that once you spend it, it's gone, plus all the fees and penalties that go there. Spending, maybe you're spending money on classes on how this child needs to roll over, or how they need to sleep, or most hospitals, many hospitals, certainly I would imagine most, offer such classes for free, and you can get some great materials from a mentor or family member. Or you're spending on the latest product. You're always upgrading your nursery. It's got to have the nicest and the best. I'm not saying don't create a safe environment for your child. Just be aware that spending just to spend, and just because somebody says it's the best or the newest or the greatest, that's spending mindlessly. Make sure you spend mindfully. And then just generally, you get the feeling that you might be spoiling your child, or that you're losing sleep because of financial concerns. There's trouble coming down the road financially, and it comes pretty quickly for a lot of new parents. So here are some of the unique challenges you have. You've got a new body in the house, which means you're probably at some point going to need another room for that child. Many times you can convert a den or a second bedroom just into the nursery, and there are places in this world and even in this country where if you have a big walk-in closet, or not even a walk-in, a big enough closet, that can become a nice, quiet, dark place for your child to sleep as they move away from the bedside. Moving, that also means some people might have to move into a new apartment or a larger home. They might need more, of course, going to need more clothing, children's clothing, and they grow so fast that there are times when people buy clothing for their baby, especially all that brand new 0 to 3 months and 3 to 6 months, and the child doesn't even wear it before it's outgrown it. So be careful of overspending on especially newborn clothing that you're going to taking back or having to give away or trade to somebody else. Diapers are going to be a big issue, always expensive, whether you're using cloth diapers or whether you're buying disposables. Childcare, one of the biggest expenses. Medical expenses, of course, coming. And then a lot of parents want to start building that child education fund. So here's something else. As the child grows, let's talk about looking down the road to be prepared for this. 35% of parents admit to spending more than $1,000 a year on children's activities, from sports to clubs to things at school and outside of school. So watch out, because those expenses can come up on you and fast, and you can feel guilty not spending on it if you haven't looked around to see more affordable options. Let's talk about the baby's impact. Let's have you consider this. You can if you're doing this live, may not be able to do it, but if you're looking at this later, consider pausing this and working through this activity. Which of these expenses do you think are going to be most impacted by a new baby, a new arrival? Do you think it's going to be food, or is it going to be healthcare, housing, transportation, or other, I guess, childcare or clothing? If you looked into childcare, you might think, oh, obviously that's going to be the first one. But look, why don't you go ahead and pause it, think. Put them in order. Which one do you think is going to be most affected by your new arrival? Let's see what the answers are. If you look down there, 30% housing is going to be a huge expense, a huge new expense. You're gonna see a lot of change if you especially have to move into a new or bigger apartment or home. After housing, you've got childcare. Obviously, it's a huge issue. If you have an employer that provides childcare or a family member, you could save yourself thousands, maybe even over $10,000 or more a year in childcare. Food is next. Of course, an extra mouth to feed. There's a reason for that expression. Transportation. If you have a two-door car and now you have to put the baby in and out of a car seat, you might want a four-door car or look at something a little more comfortable. And then after that, you got health care, which is not surprising, and additional clothing. All right, now let's do a matching activity. Let's look at expenses that are related to a new baby in the home, and compare those and match those to how much you're going to need for different expenses, purchases down the road. And all these future goals, they may not be your own goals. These are just a sample. But for example, how much do you think spending on parents who spend on brand name designer clothing between ages 0 and 18, how much does that equal up to? Does that equal up to a year's worth of median income in the house in the U.S. or maybe paying for organized sports for 1 year? Is it you're going to pay more than just for a rocker or recliner? Whatever it might be, go ahead and do a match. Kind of draw a circle or just write it down yourself. I guess you don't want to draw on your screen, but make note. Get an idea. This is going to take probably 4, 5, 6 minutes unless you're doing this live. I'm going to go ahead and continue with this right now. Let's see, brand name, designer clothing. If you have to have that brand name clothing, you're not willing to shop at secondhand stores or buy at a discount store, this is how much you're going to end up spending: $55,000. That is equal to an entire year, median household income in the U.S. for a year. Childcare at a daycare center for 3 years, just 3 years, is $40,000. Yeah, it's well over $10,000 a year. That, in just 3 years, that's equivalent to college savings account for most four-year high schools as of about 2018, 2019 figures. So as I mentioned, if you could figure out how to minimize your child care expenses, you're going to save yourself a lot of money over time. How about child care at home-based caregiver for 3 years? It could be a little more affordable rather than going to a nice daycare center, maybe a neighbor, but it's still typically equivalent to 6 months worth of emergency savings, about $30,000. What about hiring an au pair? Doesn't that sound exotic? Doesn't it sound wonderful to have somebody come in from another country and be a nanny and give your child an experience to experience somebody else's culture without having to travel? Still expensive. For 3 years, it's about $60,000, and that's equivalent to a down payment on a brand new home, a very nice home. Typically, that's just about a $300,000 home. So how about a designer high chair? How much are you going to spend on that? It's about the same as baby swimming lessons. Swimming lessons for babies can be really helpful, especially if you live in a home or a neighbor apartment where there's a pool. You're going to want to teach that child some safety. Of course, there are other high chairs available for much less than $300, and we'll still be safe. How about a home nursery makeover? That $5,000, that's like going to on a family vacation to Disney World or Universal or SeaWorld. Do you want, you just have to ask yourself, which one is more important? I'm not going to tell you which one is more important. It's up to you. And maybe you won't have to choose if you have the income. But for some people, you're going to have to ask yourself, can we afford this? Can we get by with something a little less expensive? A jogging stroller at $600 is the same as a rocker or a recliner. Again, may not even be. That's a real nice rocker recliner. You can get them secondhand stores for much less and kind of antiques, and they still work great. How about a 3D ultrasound and paying for photos? Now, as time goes by, this may become just a default service from a lot of OB doctors. There was a time when you had to pay for ultrasound photos, period, and doctors wouldn't provide those. Now they provide them, and pretty soon they'll probably start providing the 3D photos just as part of their service. But until then, you can consider that the same as you'd spend on organized sports as the child becomes a teenager. Buying a brand new SUV to carry a baby and all his or her stuff, rather than just a small car, four-door car used, you're going to spend at least $25,000, and that's the equivalent of a startup cost for your own business, possibly. Whereas a business will generate income for you over time. Paying for an SUV, cars will always go down in value. I have another presentation called The Millionaire Next Door. I highly recommend you check it out to sorry, not The Millionaire Next Door, that's a book. Who Wants to Live Like a Millionaire? Based on that book and a few other books, that you learn why most millionaires, even though they have all these assets and sufficient income, 70% of them will never buy a new car or truck. Most of them, in terms of 2018, 2019, 2020 dollars, won't spend more than $35,000, $45,000 on a car either, because they know it's just a car. It's not about symbol. So be careful if you're buying a brand new car because it's a symbol of moving up in the world. You're spending money on the wrong thing, typically. All right, and then if you insist on sending your child to private school for 9 years, K through 8, $65,000, that's the average American retirement account balance right now. That's not enough for retirement. That's just what the average American has. It's better to be way above average. That's pretty much what you need for 1 year. What are you going to do after your first year of retirement? Most Americans are not very prepared for retirement. By the way, again, most millionaires in this country did not go to a private elementary school. Most of them went to a public school, even for college. Very few of them, a minority, went to a private university, let alone a private Ivy League school. The majority of them will go to a public college or university. But they do go to college. So you do want to kind of look down the road and be prepared. Be prepared for that, because overwhelmingly do go to college, and most of them will have even a graduate degree, whether it's in medicine or business or some other advanced degree. All right, so here are the numbers of the day. As parents, here's what you're going to want to see. Because you think, oh, it can't be any worse paying all this extra money for a baby. They're so expensive. Can't wait till they grow up and they won't be so expensive. Well, hate to bust your bubble, but yes, they are pretty expensive. Typically, right now on 2018, 2019 dollars, they're averaging almost $13,000 more a year to take care of, between 0 and 5. Once they hit that 6 to 8, it goes down, wow, about $150 a year. That's not much. And then from about 9, 10 years on, till they're out of the home, with all the extra activities and transportation, they're going to end up costing almost $15,000 a year right now. That's average. Hopefully they can be below average when it comes to expenses, above average for everything else. So just be aware of that. It's disheartening, but what I want you to take from that is just don't go crazy with all the things as new parents want to get for their child. Take notes from experienced parents, your own parents, other parents, those who have maybe 3 or 4 kids, 2 or 3, or one child that's a year old or 2 years old, and ask them, you know, what would you not spend money on again if you were to do this over on your newborn? Learn from other people's mistakes. I wish I had, but just something to consider. Okay, let's talk about the assembly of your personal finances. You know, just as not every child is born to create Lego masterpieces, it's not easy to create a financial household that is one that you want to, that you feel comfortable in and that you feel successful in. I call these the priorities quadrant. Consider the different types of goals that you might have and where they will go into in these quadrants. The top 2 are very urgent or necessary goals, things that you absolutely know that you're going to need to spend money on. And this is not just for your child. This is for you as a new parent or you and your spouse. Such things might include new homes or retirement. You know you're going to need a new home at some point as you grow older, or as your family gets larger. Where does that go? It probably up in that top right-hand corner. It's necessary. And then left is not meaningful to you, right is meaningful to you. And this is where you have to really ask yourself the hard questions. How important? How is this something I really want? Or is it just something that people tell me that I should have? Is it meaningful to you? Does it do meaningful things for you and your newborn? So a new home will be necessary, and it's probably very meaningful to you, whether it's a new home or whether you update your current home. Then you got things like family vacations. Probably very meaningful for you as you grow your family or as your child grows. But is it urgent or necessary right now? Probably not. Certainly not as a newborn. Don't make the mistake that we made in taking a 1-year-old on a big family trip. He was our youngest at the time, but it's really not the ideal time to go on a trip. Mama was worn out and really didn't get to enjoy the trip much. A new vehicle. Is it necessary? In some cases it might be. Is it meaningful? It's just a car. Make sure again, it's not a car. It should not be meaningful. As when we're teenagers, we think of cars as very meaningful and very important to us. I'm the kid that's driving this kind of car or that kind of truck. But as we grow older, we learn that there are many more things more important than vehicles. That vehicles are just things that get us from this point A to point B. Retirement, for example, again, is it important? Absolutely. Necessary. Is it meaningful? It should be. How urgent? How necessary? How right now is it? Just go through and take some of these. These are just examples of goals, and start placing them in your priorities quadrant. One of those quadrants. Starting a business or having a second vacation home. Maybe you want to contribute to your own baby's retirement or to education. Just take these goals and make others and put them in these quadrants. And then what you do with those is then you start building your financial home. And the most important things you're going to focus on now are the ones in that top right-hand quadrant, of course. Anything that's up there, you need to work on now. You need to start working on things that are on the bottom right-hand quadrant, but it doesn't have to be with so much dedication. You don't have to put so much toward it every month. You can start slowly, but you do want to start early. Things in the top left-hand quadrant, the very urgent and necessary, but not meaningful. Ask yourself, if it's not meaningful, but it is necessary, what are some things I can do to minimize the expenses on it? And then, of course, things in the bottom left-hand quadrant, try to minimize spending on that as much as possible. So what does your family financial home, your future financial home, look like? Well, you take the things from the top right-hand quadrant and you put them along the foundation. So for example, emergency savings should be, even with a brand new baby, you might think, no, all my money's going to the baby. You should be putting something, even if it's just $5 or $10 a month, into an emergency savings, because you're going to need it at some point for you, for the baby, for a car, for a truck, for the house, for whatever. Emergency savings should be important and meaningful. But other things, that new home, retirement, those are the foundations of your financial home. Other important things, maybe not so urgent, will go along the walls, and the things at the very top that you never see or that you just don't really care that much about, those are going to be in your attic, things that you can store away for a long time and never miss them, because they're just not meaningful. All right, that is your future financial home. Build it with care. It needs to protect you and your family now and in the future. So ask yourself, what am I doing now? What can I do in the future? And there will be times, there will be those mornings, middles of the night, where the baby is not so cute, it's loud. There will be a time where you ask yourself, oh, what did I get myself into? Why did we want to really do this? Certainly other parents don't have this much trouble with their babies. Are they worth it? Absolutely, they'll be worth it. You might ask yourself again at the time they turn 13, 14, wait a minute, are they still worth it? Yes, they're still worth it. And they'll provide some of your most meaningful experiences in life. Let's talk about the theory of change now. When you think about the things that you have to do and you feel overwhelmed, consider these steps. The theory of change will say, okay, first, start with picturing your future. What does that future look like? What do you want in your life? What is it going to look? What is it going to be? What do you need to have? What do you want to have? And then consider where you are now. And look at the difference there. Is there a difference between where you are and where you want to be? That difference is what's going to create, what's going to motivate you. It's actually going to create some discontent. If you can put these down in writing, that's going to be the best. But you're going to say, hey, you know what? I am not heading in the right direction. If you can focus on where you want to be and versus where you are now, you're going to say, okay, I got to do something. And that's the motivation you need. 4, what are you doing to improve your chances? Think about it. What am I doing if I am going to need a new house in a couple of years? Am I putting anything away for a down payment? Or moving to an apartment in the next 6 months? Am I putting anything down for that security deposit, first and last month's rent, whatever it might be needed? What are you doing? If you're not doing anything, figure out what you need to do. If you already are doing something, write it down to make sure it stays top of mind. Tell yourself, this is what I'm doing, and I am going to change. This is what I'm going to do, and such, be detailed about it. Specifically, I'm going to do this by this date. Tell yourself how you're going to do it. And then take one step today, just one. What is it that you need to do today, or that you can do and you will do today to get on the road to building that financial home of yours in the future? Whether it's opening a savings account for your newborn or a college savings account, whether it is having this discussion with your partner, with your spouse, saying, we are not going to buy $1,000 worth of clothing for our newborn 0 to 3 because he or she's going to outgrow it before he can get through 3 or 4 of the different outfits. If you're going to invest in baby clothing, invest in those onesies. That's what they typically wear most of the time anyway. If you would like to get a certificate of completion for today's webinar, please go to bit.ly, that's bit.ly/MFL, MoneyFit Live, MFL-parents, and enter in, after your name and email address, enter in BabyBucks19, BABYBUCKS19. Thank you for joining me today, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.